Felice Nazzaro was an Italian racecar driver from Turin. He was born in 1881, and as a teenager he started working for the Ciariano brothers in their workshop in Turin, which would later be sold to Giovanni Agnelli, the Fiat founder. The Ciariano brothers built bicycles, and towards the end of the century they started building cars as well. Shortly afterwards, Nazzaro started racing, driving Fiat vehicles, and quickly became a successful pioneer of the nascent racing industry in the early 1900s. In 1900, he entered his first race, the Padua-Vicenza-Padua, driving a 6 HP Fiat, and finished second behind Vincenzo Lancia. On the 28th of April 1900, he won his first race, the 48 km Turin-Asti, in just over an hour on a Fiat 6 HP. In 1901, he won the Piombino Grosseto and the Antignano-Livorno races in Tuscany. That same year, he won his first major race, the Giro d'Italia, at an average speed of just under 30 miles an hour. The race was run over 16 days and 1,000 miles on public roads. In 1904, he finished fifth in the first Coppa Florio, driving an old 70 HP Panhard, which put him on the radar of major car manufacturers that were entering motor racing competitions. The race was won by one of his former colleagues at the Ciariano workshop, Vincenzo Lancia, on a 75 HP Fiat. Nazzaro's performance was enough to allow him to join Fiat's work team the following year. Felice finished the Gordon Bennett of 1905 in second, behind the reigning race winner Leon Thery. Vincenzo Lancia had led most of the race on another Fiat 100 HP, but was forced to retire on the penultimate lap due to radiator issues. The following year, he finished second again in the first French Grand Prix. The race was run over 2 days on a 64-mile course, and Nazzaro won the stage on the second and final day. However, the overall victory went to Ferrand Siz on a Renault AK 90 CV. 1907 was arguably Nazzaro's best year, when he managed to win what were considered the three most important races in those days. First, he won the Targa Florio in April on the Madonie circuit, ahead of his teammate Vincenzo Lancia, winner of the 1904 edition. Then he won the Kaiser Prize in June 1907 on the 118 km circuit on the roads of the Taunus region, and finally, 2 weeks later, he won the French Grand Prix held at Dieppe on the 2nd of July. Felice's successes in 1907 led to an invitation to compete the following year in the first Grand Prize race of the Automobili Club of America in Savannah, Georgia, where he finished third. In June 1908, Nazzaro was involved in a duel racing against French driver Arthur Duret at Brooklands, England, the first circuit ever built in the world. The race, over 10 laps, saw Duret taking the lead, but was then forced to retire. Nazzaro won the race and broke the circuit's lap record at over 120 miles an hour, and in the process he became the first man to cross the 200 km an hour barrier. In 1911, Nazzaro decided to enter the automotive industry and start his own company, practice pretty common amongst racing drivers in those days. Together with his brother-in-law, Pila de Masoero, Arno Zoller and Maurizio Fabri, he founded the Nazzaro NC Fabbrica Automobili. Nazzaro's own racing team had some success as well, winning the 1913 Targa Florio, driving a Nazzaro Tipo 2 with a 3-hour lead on the runner-up. In 1915, the Tipo 3 was released. However, the Nazzaro's company didn't last long, and production ended in 1923. In 1920, Nazzaro resumed his racing career, finishing second in the Aosta Gran San Bernardo hill climb. The same year, one of his cars, driven by Guido Meregalli, won the Targa Florio ahead of a young Enzo Ferrari, at the time driver for the Alfa Romeo team. In 1921, after the First World War had ended, after nearly 10 years away from competition, mainly due to the looming World War, Fiat had turned their attention back to racing, and Nazzaro rejoined the team. Times had by then changed, and new drivers had emerged. Nazzaro's new teammate was fellow Turin native Pietro Bodino, by many considered one of the fastest drivers in the world. However, it was Nazzaro who won the 1922 French Grand Prix, 9 years after his last participation in a major race. He also set the fastest lap on the 8.3-mile Strasbourg circuit at nearly 90 miles an hour. In 1922, he finished second at the first edition of the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, behind his teammate Pietro Bodino on a Fiat 804. The following year, he finished second again at the Italian Grand Prix, officially titled the European Grand Prix, held once again in Monza. At the end of 1924, Fiat closed down their racing team. Nazzaro stayed with the team after their withdrawal from competitions, and eventually officially retired from racing in 1929, when Fiat withdrew permanently from racing. Nazzaro had already announced his retirement in 1923, following the death of his wife Carolina in a car accident, which deeply affected him. Felice Nazzaro died on the 21st of March 1940, after a long illness at the age of 58. His funeral was organized by Fiat, and many Italian authorities and personalities attended the funeral. To this day, Nazzaro is remembered as one of the most successful Italian drivers of the early days of motor racing.